Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending the U.S. Army Peoria Recruiting Station Virtual Job Fair event. I would like to introduce you to Sergeant Patrick Clark. Sergeant Clark will tell you about his company, job openings, and how to apply for those openings. Sergeant Clark, are you available to present?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. You can begin whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi, everyone. As said before, my name is Sergeant Clark. I am an Army recruiter for both active duty and the Army Reserves. So just a brief explanation. I recruit for the federal side of the Army. So that's active duty and the Army Reserves. So been around for pretty much the beginning of the United States becoming a country, and will continue on helping defend the United States. So lots of people join for different reasons, from just wanting to serve their country to wanting to explore different career opportunities or pursue higher education on their end. So several different reasons, and including that a lot of people going into management positions, at least what I've found, will use their Army experience for future management because it gives them the skills that they need to actually lead people effectively. Because it is the military, there are some very set qualifications to even be able to join the Army. So one, you have to be a US citizen, or you have to have a green card. And I believe it's an I-551 card. And then you have to be between the ages of 17 and 34. Now, 17 is unique that you can still join at 17, but you have to have parental or guardian consent to be able to go through any of the process. And then at 34, you have to be in basic training before your 35th birthday. Then good physical condition. So that doesn't necessarily mean like you need to be like fully prepped and ready to be able to pass like a PT test or anything like that. What that is relating to is you need to be in good medical condition. So no adverse health conditions, no major reliance on medications, anything like that. Now, there are a lot of things that we do waivers for. So if it is something that is a concern, you just have to ask a recruiter, because there's a high chance you could still get a waiver for it. So don't just automatically disqualify yourself. So you also have to have a clean legal record. So again, kind of falling back in with the medical side of things. So this doesn't mean you can't have never had any law issues whatsoever in your life. However, it just means you can't have anything open and pending. And then there are certain things that would disqualify you. So for example, if you have something that would prevent you from being able to legally carry or use a firearm in the United States, then that would hurt your chances on being able to enlist into the Army, because you have to be able to legally and lawfully carry a weapon. And then some of the education requirements. So you have to have minimum a high school diploma or equivalent. So GED or a homeschool, a verified homeschool program. Or you have to have a college already on your belt if you don't have either of those. So kind of a brief difference between active duty. So active duty is full-time Army. So as you're going in, and depending on what job you are doing in the Army, that could be anywhere from 2 years to up to 5 years, just fully serving on active duty in the Army. And then the reserves, that is a fully part-time position. So the reserves is the support function for the active duty Army. So when the active duty needs extra people, then they'll request people in from the reserves. Kind of another unique thing about the reserves, though, it is entirely a support function. So there are not combat jobs within the reserves. So typically you're going to do one drill weekend a month and then 2 weeks a year for the mandatory training for that unit. So for example, if you're in medical reserve unit, that's when they would go out, set up like a mock hospital and make sure everyone knows what they're doing. So when it comes to crunch time, there's no worries on that. So for both of them, still go to the same basic training and job training. And then for the reserve side, when you are on basic training or at your job training, you're receiving full active duty benefits. So on the active duty side, so basic pay salary. So everyone starts in as an E1. We use a pay scale. So E would be enlisted 1. So that would be basic, brand new private to the Army. So right at there, be making $1,638 a month on salary. However, that is straight base pay. That's not including extra money included in housing, food, free uniforms and equipment, and then full health insurance that you don't have to pay anything into. Now, housing is provided for both single soldiers and married soldiers for their families. And then same with food. For food, you're usually getting around an extra $250 a month on top of your monthly paycheck just for additional food. Everything that you need for your job is provided. So your uniform, any specialized equipment that you need for your job, that's all provided from the Army. So you don't have to worry about having any wage garnishment coming out of your paycheck for stuff that the Army needs you to do. And then along with the 30 days paid vacation. So because we are salary, we get paid on the 1st and the 15th on active duty every month regardless. So when you do take vacation days, your pay does not stop for those days. It's continuous. On the reserve side, so the reserve side part-time function, obviously it's not going to be a large paycheck because it's only one weekend a month. So, but overall, you're getting, just starting out, even as an E1, you're getting $238 for that 1 weekend. And then along with that, though, the reserves is primarily meant more for people seeking to go back to school, pursue higher education full time, or are already in a solid career path or profession, and still want a chance to serve, but don't want to upend their entire career to do so. Now, on the reserve side, you're still getting full health care. You do have to pay into it a little bit, but even then, for a single reservist, you're only paying just over $44 a month for full coverage for both medical, health, and dental coverage. And then for if you are married, that 228 is for the entirety of your family. There's no cap on how many children you have. Now, with the reserves too, because you can serve in any reserve unit within the U.S., the Army Reserves, your unit will also pay for any mileage or distance to get you there for the drill weekend. So, for example, if you're assigned to a drill unit, you enlist into a drill unit in California, they would actually pay your airfare to get there every month and then put you up in a hotel during that period of your drill weekend. So looking into the college benefits, so post 9/11 GI Bill, this applies primarily towards the active duty side. So looking at this, over a total is just short of $70,000 to go back to school. And that's cut out normally over 36 months, but it can also cover out longer. It really just depends on your school plan. And on top of that, with the post 9/11 GI Bill, you're also getting a living stipend. So that's entirely based off of the cost of living of your zip code for your school. So if you're going to school in a state where the cost of living isn't as high, the Army's going to adjust that to the cost of living index. But if you're going to a school that's more expensive, like if you're going to an area like New York, California, that cost of living is going to be higher, so you're going to get more money. Along with that, also getting $1,000 annually for books, any school supplies. So any of those extra hidden fees of like textbooks and everything for all your classes. Now, one thing with the post 9/11 GI Bill, you have to serve 3 years on active duty to receive the full GI Bill. However, if you only do a 2-year enlistment, you can just cut off right at 66% of the GI Bill. Then another thing, and this applies to the reserves too, as you'll see on the next slide. We also have tuition assistance, and this is money set aside that does not come out of the GI Bill at all. And it's an extra $4,500 a year annually to go back to school. And that money goes directly to the school, pays for everything. And then there is no continuation cap on it. It refunds itself every single fiscal year. So looking into it, total, you can be looking at just over $111,000 in total benefits. However, with the tuition assistance, if you're savvy enough, find like a good grad program that falls in line with the tuition assistance, which a lot of colleges do work specifically with the military to keep it under that cap, that can increase. On the reserve side, so reserve side is reserves, it is part-time, so it's not going to pay out as much as the active duty GI Bill. However, looking about just over $14,000 to go back to school. And this kind of similar can cover anywhere from 36 months all the way out to like 72 months. And then you also have the tuition assistance as well. And a lot of this can be used in conjunction with extra scholarships that you can apply for that are specific just to the Army Reserves and FAFSA loans. So you can use this all simultaneously so you don't have to pay a bunch of money in or take extra loans out. We also have what's called a GI Bill kicker. So this is very specific to the ASVAB, which I will cover a little bit later on. If you score higher on the on the ASVAB, you can qualify for a kicker, and you're getting anywhere from an extra $100 to an extra $300 a month towards your GI Bill. So another thing that is unique to the Army Reserves is we have what's called the student loan repayment program. So this goes up to $50,000. So what this is any student loans that are federally backed that you take out from the time you enlist into the reserves to the time you get out of the reserves, this program will cover. So if you enlist in the reserves and you have $45,000 student loan repayment program, then you can take up to $45,000 with student loans, and the Army is going to pay that for you. That money is not going to come out of your pocket when it comes time to pay out those loans. And then depending on jobs, we also have enlistment bonuses of up to $20,000 But like I said, it does depend on jobs. So if there's job that needs to be filled a little bit more on the reserve side, that there's going to be a higher bonus for that. So another thing, looking into both active duty and the reserves, we have in the Army is what's called the Concurrent Admissions Program, or CONAP. So what this program is the Army has partnered with a lot of different state colleges to allow guaranteed admissions into those schools. So now you still have to have the minimum qualifications to get into that school. So you still need to have your SAT score high enough to be able to get in, and still have to meet all the requirements. So all job training within the Army, so any professional job training that we do is akin to a college level course. So what we do, say take your basic 8-week college course, we condense that down to about 4 to 5 weeks. So you still get college credits for that. And then we have what's called a joint service transcript. So especially after you finish your job training, your initial training through basic and everything, all you have to do is just go in and submit your JST. They'll send an official transcript over to your school, and they'll be able to go in and either cover electives or even cover some of your main classes that you have to do for your degree plan. So for example, if you are joining as a 25 Bravo as an information technology specialist, in a lot of cybersecurity or networking degrees, that'll take off some of your core classes, like your network fundamentals classes, stuff like that. So overall, in the Army, we have tons and tons of different careers. So the Army is set to be self-sufficient. So we have everything from the medical field. Of course, we have combat arms because it is the Army. Administrative, like HR. We even have legal jobs, like if you want to be a paralegal. And then aviation, we have everything from aviation mechanics to even being able to go out and fly helicopters. Now, again, one key thing to note is combat jobs are not in the reserves. So looking in to this as well, so we have some jobs that relate directly towards STEM. So if you want to get into a particular industry that follows the whole STEM, you'll be able to find that pretty easily within the Army, because we have tons of engineering jobs, we have a lot of medical jobs, and a lot of technology jobs. Now, another key thing about the Army, so we do not do any open contracts in the Army. This applies to active duty and the Army Reserves. So you are enlisting into a job, and you have to qualify for that job based off of your ASVAB. Now, this being the case, how we do this is when you enlist, we have a live system. So the actual training seats for the job training are available for us to see and pull. So you're not going into basic training just blindly, like, I don't know if I'm going to be like an aircraft mechanic or a cook or infantry. You're going to know what you're getting yourself into, because everything is going to be in black and white before you sign anything. So going in a little bit into the process. So start the process out first, you have to go talk to an Army recruiter. So Army recruiters, our job is specifically to guide you through the process, get you information that you need to know. And then United States military is an entirely voluntary force. So at the end of the day, our job is to get you the information, and then it is your decision and make that choice on whether you want to serve or not. So following after the interview, um, normally what you would do is you would take the ASVAB. So the ASVAB, that is your initial entry test into the military. So it's going to cover some core sections going into math and linguist skills. And then along with that, it's also going to cover many different sections, like sections going into mechanics and technology. Um, and then going into that, any actual processing you do past this point is all done at MEPS. So MEPS is a military entrance processing station. So this is where everyone in the military, regardless, doesn't matter what branch of the military, it could be Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy, or even the Guard, you're going to be going through MEPS to do any of the processing. So physical, that is your basic medical examination. So anyone who's done any kind of sports or anything through school, it's pretty akin to that. It's just sports physical, just going into a lot more detail, because their job up at MEPS is to ensure that there's nothing that could possibly be coming up medically in the future that could cause risk or injury to yourself during your service. So along with that, after going through, taking the ASVAB, doing your physical up at MEPS, you'll sit down with an Army guidance counselor, and they will go over all of your information, sit down, talk with you, and go over everything before you go in and decide to sign on the dotted line and then list. So now after that, you're going to know exactly when basic training will be starting for you and everything. And then after enlisting, you'll do the whole swearing ceremony where you raise your right hands and you're basically pledging allegiance to defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, going into basic training for the Army is 9.5 weeks. So now another key thing to note though, because we do have COVID-19 going on right now, is there is an additional 2 weeks attached to that now for quarantine. So everyone going through basic training goes through 2 weeks of quarantine now to ensure that no one has COVID, there's no major illnesses or anything, while everyone is in actual basic training. And then following that, you would go through what's called advanced individual training. So that is your job training. So for that, there's no way for me to give you a solid length of time because it is individual to a job. So if you're going through your AIT to be a mechanic versus going in to be into some of the medical jobs that we have, that training can be anywhere from 3 weeks up to about 9 months. So really just entirely dependent on the job. And we also have what's called the alternate training program. So this is a really good program for anyone that's currently in college already or still a senior in high school, but is looking into starting college up immediately. What this program does, there are select jobs that apply to this program, but what this is this allows you to go through, do basic training during that summer break, go back to school, and then that following summer, finish out your job training. And then normally after all of that, on the active duty side, after finishing AIT and everything, you receive your first duty assignment. Army will cut orders saying, hey, this is where you're going to be going. And then on the reserve side, after that point, once you finish AIT, you come back home, resume normal life, and then just gotta maintain that one drill weekend a month. So I'll leave it up to some following questions.
Fantastic. Thank you for that presentation, Sergeant Clark. It was quite thorough. I only have just a few kind of basic questions for you, for the folks that might be tuning in at a later date. What would be the best means to go ahead and initiate this process? Is there a individual they should get in contact? Would that be you? And if so, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
All right. So best way to get a hold of me, I actually have some contact information that I attached at the end.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this my work email. Anyone can email me at that, and I'll be able to set up either an in-person interview or a Zoom interview or a Microsoft Teams interview, and be able to go through the whole process, get you all the information, and then from there be able to decide if you want to continue on with the process to join the Army, or at that point decide, okay, well, not for me. And then below is actually our office number. So this number directly for to reach any of the recruiters based out of Peoria for both active duty and the reserves. So the best way to start the process is to get a hold of a recruiter. So if you're in the greater Peoria area, then you of course can reach out to me or call our office. Anyone who is based outside of the main Peoria area, of course, though, all you have to do is just get a hold of your Army recruiting station. So example, if you're in Champaign, just gotta call up there. Same for Bloomington Normal. Just got to reach out to your recruiters over there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sergeant Clark. And then I know we briefly discussed this before the session began, but can you kind of elaborate on what process, more specifically, the recruitment stations are taking kind of with the COVID-19 precautions? Are you guys suggesting that folks set up, Zoom meetings or webinars with you, or do you suggest that they call you to set up an appointment in person, or what is the process that you all have been following?
All right, so this is based on personal preference. So for the initial interview, we can set up to do a Zoom interview, Microsoft Teams interview, or even just like a straight up interview over the phone. Or we can also set up a time for anyone to come in person. However, you do still have to follow guidelines for COVID, so you have to have a mask on. And then for that initial interview, Zoom is fine. Anyone who wants to continue on with their process, there are some things that do have to be done in person before going up to maps.
Okay, fantastic. And I think we're kind of nearing the end of our session here today, Sergeant Clark. So I just wanted to provide you with kind of a final opportunity to perhaps include anything that maybe you feel you didn't cover, or maybe something else that came to mind towards the end of the presentation. I want to give you the opportunity to do so now before we kind of wrap up the presentation.
I think I covered it fairly well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I just want to make a final note. This session has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the Illinois WorkNet YouTube channel later today. It will also be linked to the Peoria Recruiting Station's employer booth on Illinois WorkNet. So if there's anything that you would like to reference at a later date, you can do so there. Again, I would just like to thank Sergeant Clark for the presentation today, and any folks who will be turning in at a later date. Thank you all for attending.